Hello, I'm Jessie Gray. We have with us on books today and tonight, whichever time you're viewing, a very remarkable guest. He's both a painter and a poet. I must say, although he's extremely successful creatively in both painting and poetry, and he recently had a show at the Allenstone Gallery of his paintings in March. He is yet unpublished in poetry, has volumes and volumes of very fine poems, and we'll talk to him today about what it's like to be both a painter and a poet, and to keep on working in the face of being unpublished as a poet. Would you please welcome with me Phillip Sherrod. I think you'll hear his name a lot in both fields, as you're already beginning to hear it in painting. Thank you for coming today, Phil.
Thank you, Jessie. Yeah.
I must say Phil and I are friends. We've, with my husband, have known each other for many years, and we respect his work very highly. Would you like to start out, Phillip Sherrod, painter and poet, by reading us one of your poems? Does that suit you as a beginning, or would you have something to add to what I said? I'm sure you have a lot.
Well, I will say that I thank you for the invitation being here today and all of that. But yeah, it's working is the same whether one's noticed or not, or whether one's even published.
Working's the same, but just what about the feedback, the needing to perhaps share your work with someone else, to at least
I think
be acknowledged?
I think communication for the poet or for creative people is the main reason for writing. Maybe to a degree, loneliness, or the state of being unable to communicate or accept certain conditions in society or whatever forces one to a more idealistic position or individualistic position. But why don't I start by reading one?
Read us a poem.
C. 2:30 p.m. Wednesday. A sunny side up, then over, bouncing like a rubber ball. 2 whole wheat slices, toasted brown, gold's horseradish, fine Dijon poupon. 2 shakes of NaCl before the bite. No better than a Dagwood comic strip sandwich or dogwood of William Carlos Williams. How sweet the introduction of Allen Ginsberg's Howl I Didn't Think He'd Stick Around Long Enough to Get It Together. Misquoted between bad bites. But who can quote a bad poet or wolfman unless he be a good distorted magnolia, blossoming out in a light-hearted laugh of a full moon, unless he be an oscillated blenny or butterfly fish? After all, description isn't everything.
When did you write this? C.
When did I write it? This year.
This year?
Yeah, the stuff I'm reading is from this year.
Do you write a poem all at once? Do you usually sit down and go in a steady stream, or do you intellectualize about its form, its content beforehand?
Well, Jessie,
how do you write?
Yeah, I write within the fit of the moment. I write, I do rework over and over and over, but sometimes I just dash it on the rocks or throw it away. I don't, if I can't hold a poem and get it within, let's say, about a month, I junk it, and it comes back up again in a different form or a different way. But when do you decide that you've got a poem? Things like that, that's another thing.
Do you decide it's finished and suddenly a year later start working on it again?
No, once I've been that far away from it, I let it go. I mean, I can't come back. I'm not that highly intellectualized type that I wish to hold, retain, and if the form doesn't work as of the statement within the feeling at the time, that's it. I don't.
Do you, when you're in your painting, does your painting and your poetry, and we're going to be showing some of your paintings now as you read future poems, as you're painting, for instance, or visualizing a painting, do you see it in words and paint at the same time? Does the two overlap in terms of content? Of course they do in terms of content, but do they overlap at the same time so that you have to put it into words and paint?
Well, no. I think you know, writing or poetry and painting, I think, is completely different as a form or as approaching it. Painting is more of an involuntary state of vision, which I think that people that see, and relative to feeling, and I think poetry, it's a matter of trying to bring out the subconscious image, so it's like working from the inside out.
But you still have to be more conscious bringing it out than you do in painting, don't you?
I can't say that. No, I can't say that.
No?
No, I can't say that. I mean, no, I can't. I mean, you might, but I can't. No, I think that it's more difficult to bring the inside out than to take the outside in. I think it's more difficult, but is it more difficult? I don't know.
Well, when you said painting's more involuntary, is that the word you used?
I see vision as more involuntary. I see words connected with subconscious association and knowledge and...
But there's something that you have to move, perhaps it could remain at the back of your head in painting that you have to move up front for writing? Or do you feel that? That's put in...
I'm not, yeah. That's very difficult to say. I mean...
What is the difference between creating something in words and in paint in the way that you, of course you're thinking words and versus color, but what is a different creative approach?
Well, when I paint, I have to go to painting to associate to the question of poetry, because I've been painting for 15 years. Poetry, I've been working for about 5 years, so therefore I might be much younger in the form, although I don't feel that, and yet people tell me that after a year or two, well, it's getting better, and I say, oh yeah? But
do you see it yourself?
To the work, well, I see the form becoming more cohesive and tight within a statement. I mean, I painted so long that I don't know any longer. It just happens. Poetry, I still consciously have to be aware of.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. Okay.
That's what I wondered.
Okay.
What?
You got it.
What is, we finally got what I wanted to ask.
Right.
What left you still wanting something in painting so that after 10 years of painting you turned to poetry?
Yeah, all right. In painting, as I developed what they call a style, or as it came out, I would have to say that I did away with details or lyricism within form or description, and more or less went to kind of a psychic touch. And I always felt that well, I mean, words are another thing. Words are a world. Words are, completely separate. It's colors in words, but it's not the same. I'm blinded by the outside within vision. Words, I think people that write or paint are people that know very little about either form. That's on the inside. That's not for the public, but I think that's the truth of the matter. I think that it's their groping with reality as they perceive it, or as that's it. Yeah.
Do words have colors? Do letters have colors?
Oh yes,
for
sure,
you?
Sure.
Can you think of green words, blue words, purple words, yellow words?
I can, but that's more intellectualization than I do. I'm more interested in statement within the guts of the feeling as I perceive it or as I experience it. To me, there are too many that contrive up color, whether it be words or painting, to make a poem or a painting.
But as a painter, have words and certain forms, letters, for instance, taken on certain color to you?
They do take on one's own color.
Right.
Yeah, that seems to be what, if you're asking that.
Do you, as you walk along the street, are you constantly creating a poem? Are you constantly thinking in terms of verbal images as well as visual? Are you constantly just instantly reacting so that as you see something, you translate it in your head
It's the
to
same
poetry?
thing. It's the same thing in that sense, you know. I mean, the initial beginning, the initial start from life, or in other words, I think in the painting side or in the vision, I am more keyed off by the instant moment. I think the other, there's more of a playback, a continual playback at varying parts of the time. I mean, I wake up and I'll have 4 good lines in my head, and I'll try to go to sleep, but I know if I shut it off, and I do sometimes, but then if I wake up again in a few minutes and I get the same reoccurring images, I get up and I try to put them down. And it's interesting to see that sometimes the next day after I truly get up, I work until I get exhausted, and then 3 or 4 hours, and then I get to a standstill and I just let it go. And then I come back the next day and it falls together just as if, you know, it was all there. In other words, it's a matter of waiting out the time sequence of the word flow. That seems to be what on the word side.
In waiting it out, do you sometimes go back then to painting and completely divorce your mind from
yes,
it
yeah. At
as a
first
break
that
so
was,
that it
yeah,
does come
yeah.
to fruition?
At first that was very difficult to change the media between painting and poetry, but after a while it becomes automatic again. It's just a matter of picking up the pencil and remembering what you've got, whether you've got the pencil or the brush in the hand, and just dipping into the color, yeah.
Have you sent your poems out to many, many, many places? Many
All
magazines?
the small, yeah, all the procedure. I didn't want to go through with that at first, but yeah, the small publication procedure, everybody advised me that I should, you know, begin to get published. And the interesting thing is that I get these little jotting type notes, you know. The publishers are too busy to publish in these small magazines, but they give me little personal notes, you know, of, we're sorry. And that doesn't
They
matter.
are personal and not mimeographed?
Well, yeah, they write little,
Xeroxed?
I don't know whether it's, you know, guilt, kindness, or acknowledgement of something that they've read, but they don't want to publish it because they don't recognize it or know the name or whatever, you know.
Do you have a pile of rejection slips now? That's
I've got
getting higher
almost
and
as much
higher?
as the, yeah, almost as much as the original manuscript, yeah.
Do you have then, after having so many rejection slips and believing in your own work and having other people believe in it too, is it a blow each time when a new one comes back? Is it now a matter of course?
No, it's automatic. It's automatic, yeah. It's automatic.
Do you expect it to be a rejection, or is there still a flicker of hope each time and you're always waiting for it? Perhaps an acceptance.
Well, you know, you almost think that eventually one could open up a packet and it would say, we're going to publish. The last rejection
Your complete
was,
works in 3 volumes.
was from out in Kansas, and they sent me a little note. We almost published the title of the poem, and then they, sorry, but we didn't have enough room, or, you know, something like that, which is, you know, quite contradictory. But
That means that they like it very much, I believe, as the
Does it?
terminology goes. Would you like to read another poem? And while you're doing so, I will hold up some of your paintings. And I just wish that we had the show in color, because your work is so much color.
then we'd have to have the work here in color instead of the black and white photographs.
So, in black and white, we will show your work as you read another poem.
8 years old. Raised on wonder-bred blimps to colonial opposition. Aftermaths for World War II. Reconstruction. 1943 mockingbirds were in fashion. Bomb diving it for song. Are they ours? Wings in memory of flying tigers, those painted teeth I still see yet. The neighborhood's kid, David Simpson, painted on his snub-nosed plane, all by himself. He had tanks, too, guns and ammo. I did not know what to think of it. Those endless tunnels and rat-a-tat-tat. He waved his patriotic flag, his father in the Navy. Is your father a soldier, sailor, or Marine? My father is too young, the first time I told him. The last time I said but rumors to gossip. Around the neighbors passing and behind closed doors he talked to his mom. I seen him stretch a string even with his nose and barrel roll over it after taking one step. Could the small guy with the glasses, father, be a communist? Start to read.
Go ahead and read some more. Add one more poem. We're still showing your works.
All right. This is dedicated to an ex-painter that's no longer living. It's titled Noble Savage for Paul Gauguin, 1848 to 1903. You left after his ear came off, Sunday painter, with both ears bound to Tahiti. For 7 years, no hypocrite, obsessive to likes and eroticism, coarse as canvas, in dream refinement you painted. Bristle brushes wrapped in boar's milk. Gauguin, your women's knockers knock as much as coconuts. Hard knocks to passion to walnut wood. Your half smile lays knotted below navels. A sun sets to rotted musk. You were literal, like us, blinded by smells, sucking mangoes a pastime. Your slant-eyed virgins, straight-legged women, no hips to speak of, stand dark as almonds in praise of light-skinned men. But paradise rings true for birds, tropical or new, brown bodies resilient in dreamscapes. Hee-haw, Tiffaton, moon and earth, muses foreboding eternal red spring. Love with heavy arms, symbolic as sledges, your women like backsides are telling, wet in dreams as juveniles are South Seas, animated the dark deers, scars of a good life. Manio to Papio, the spirit of the dead keeps watch. Where do we come from? What are we? Where are we going?
Thank you. Phil, you've been in New York 15 years?
Yeah, Jessie. Yeah.
Where were you born? What was your childhood?
I was born in 1935 in Pauls Valley, Oklahoma, in a small strip mining alfalfa field with frogs.
Were you born in the Bible Belt? And
Yeah.
what was your upbringing? What?
Hardtack Methodist or hardcore Methodist.
And you stayed in Oklahoma and studied wildlife conservation, I believe.
Well, I have a degree in zoology. I went through the system thinking it could save the world on the wild side of life. No, on the natural side of life.
That you may be doing.
Yeah, might be. Still in the
The
same
wild
field.
side
yeah,
especially.
yeah. Well, I don't know about that, but no, I grew up just like any other boy ever does.
Were you interested in painting? What led you the direction that you're now going?
Well, I don't know. I spent all of my life playing, football, baseball, and all of the little sports that we go through with in America. The Western intellect of the sun, the sports-minded muscle. But no, I don't know. I feel like that I was always a very mental child, and I never knew it, and I didn't have exposure, to certain things, cosmopolitan sophistication, books like this program. But I kept alive and,
What was the
continued
turning
to
point in your life?
accumulate the subconscious imagery. The turning point in my life, when is it going to be?
What was the turning point that turned you from the,
Well, when I was 21, which is very late, 23 almost, before I finally decided to paint, because I saw in Oklahoma City they traveled a show, and there was two small heads by Rembrandt and one landscape, the one with the dog in it. Do you know that one? It's very...
the great big black and white dog with the two little girls?
No, that's a little more...
Oh, that's
reject-
Renoir.
this
I'm
is-
sorry,
well,
I'm
yeah,
Rembrandt.
Yeah. But anyway, I saw this small head by Rembrandt, and it triggered off the whole state of my being. In other words, I knew that I knew relative to that. And then I went to school, got a degree, and went through the latest abstraction in teaching and all of that. And
You then,
still returned back to the street and people.
you went to school then in Oklahoma and studied painting?
Yeah. Yes.
How did you come to New York? What led you here?
I had a scholarship up in Boston that was offered me to paint 9 years under, I won't mention the name, but an anonymous person that had lots of money. And I turned it down because he was a social kind of revolutionist within a very conservative way. He wished me to paint a certain way. And then I came to the Art Students League, rejected that and came to the Art Students League, and took a couple of years here, thinking that I would, meet somebody that knew something. And I found out that it's just a matter of voguery, the direction of where people have been led, and that's what the Art Students League had to offer.
Have you found
Few
people who
people.
know something?
Well, I found some people that can paint and write poems, but know something. Sure, I guess.
Well, in the term that you used.
Well, I'm only interested in art, or I'm only interested in poetry and painting, so it limits me.
That's what I meant. You said you came here
Yeah,
hoping to find
yeah.
someone who knew something, but really you went from the Art Students League and developed.
Well, I went out into the street, Jessie, because you know where they led, the Art Students League, the National Academy, where they led at that time, and I've always thought a little bit too much for myself. I was always too independent, and I've always been very slow in developing up to a social, political viewpoint. I've always had the individual pronounced as a state of being. But so I went out in the street and I began to paint, people, and that's how I've come to where I am.
How do you see yourself fitting into society?
How do I see
you feel-
society fitting around me? I mean, I don't know. I don't like that question.
All right,
I mean,
good.
I don't know that I'll ever fit,
That-
because I don't accept certain things. I mean,
What don't you accept?
don't ask me that. I mean,
What do you reject in our society?
well, I reject the
its values.
conventionalities of what I feel is a very non-thinking process on the part of everyone within a collective whole or majority. I feel like that few of us have the interest in life enough to follow any direction, to search it out and self-study or educate to a degree that would begin to stand up within a revitalization within the system. I mean, I'm not for criticizing the system without attempting to replace it with something. I don't like, I'd rather not answer, what don't I like. It's that I've never been comfortable, and maybe, none of us ever will be comfortable within any system, but I would like to see certain things changed. I can't say politically because I see politics as being what it is. I see things to the end point of the literal description. Political people are involved in manipulations, and they always will be, and they always have been.
Do
So
you
I
find
can't,
political
I won't criticize.
manipulations everywhere, and that includes the arts?
See, it comes down, Jessie, let me stop just to hear it, because it comes down to two things: the individual statement and the collective totality. And within the individual statement, you have the possibility, now not necessarily art, but the possibility. And I think within, depending on the talent, the drive, the psychic drive, the success or not, to a degree, yes, it's very difficult to be a dark horse. But then again, it becomes a life and a way of life, because that moment that the brush or the pen hits the word and you know it's right, truth, possible truth.
Doesn't it finally become easier and easier to be a dark horse? Only
well,
because the other avenues are impossible?
Only because there's never been a light horse.
Would you describe yourself as a happy person? A satisfied
I think,
person?
I think, well, I don't know about satisfied. No, not satisfied, but I think very aggressively optimistic. About what? Yeah, I think I'm a very...
As you would...
I have lived as I did. Yeah, I have been.
You have
I am,
achieved
yeah.
what you have.
Well, I don't know what I've achieved. That's, you know, the world thinks in terms of success, achievements. I'm not so hasty to see the changing position of the world and the attitudes that they have. I would like to offer what I think is the truth and possible art within the dedication of working as a form, and beyond that, art is art and life is life. And I don't confuse the two, even though I get lost in life all the time. Right?
I wish we had time for you to close out on a poem. Unfortunately, we don't. Would you come back again?
I would be
when
delighted.
We're a little more
Yeah,
organized
yeah.
here shooting the show, too,
Sure do.
because we haven't discussed everything, and I'd like to have you back.
Well, I think.
Thank you for coming. We've been talking to Phillip Sherrod. I'm Jessie Gray. The program is Books. I'm sure you will be reading books of Phillip Sherrod's poetry. Thank you for being with us today.